Oh, Zach, what have you done? So Batman v Superman is directed by Zack Snyder and stars Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Amy Adams, and Jesse Eisenberg. And this movie is a direct sequel to Man of Steel, the 2013 film about Superman. And this film follows two main characters, the first one being Superman, who has to deal with the fallout of all of his actions from Man of Steel, as society is wondering if he is a threat to them rather than a helpful peacekeeper, and many of them being very angry at him for his actions, one of them being Bruce Wayne, or the Batman, who is the second main character we follow in this movie, as his blood begins to boil and he begins to devise a plan in order to take down Superman and get rid of him from society. Along the way, we are introduced to Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, who has also thought of another plan in order to pit the Batman and Superman against each other. Now, I will be honest, in the past few months before this movie's release, I was not looking forward to the movie really much at all. The new trailers for it made it seem a lot less entertaining than it should be, and it seemed like it'd be too overcrowded and I wasn't going to like it that much. But in these past few weeks, there have been a few earlier screenings where fans walked out super ecstatic about it and even said that it was better than The Dark Knight, so my hopes started looking up as I went to the theater to see this movie. And then they came crashing down. Batman v Superman is one of the worst movies I've seen all year. Actually, it is the worst movie I've seen all of this year. It's disappointing on so many levels, I can't even begin to explain how much I hated this movie. If it wasn't for the advanced screening, the free ticket, and for the hundreds of fans next to me, I would have walked out of that theater. It is truly, truly a terrible superhero movie. But before I get into my negatives, let's talk some positives, and the big main one here is Ben Affleck as Batman. Ben Affleck does a great job as Batman in this movie, and he's definitely the best performance in the entire film. I wouldn't say he's like a great Bruce Wayne. He is as good as Bruce Wayne, but his character is a little bit depressing at times, and I do think that Michael Keaton still did a better job as Bruce Wayne, but his Batman is definitely the most entertaining I've seen Batman. It's the best acting I've seen from a Batman performance, and the costume design on Batman is fantastic. Another great thing this movie does is the costume design, like I mentioned earlier, as the Batsuit looks fantastic, the power armor Batsuit that he has looks amazing. Henry Cavill in the Superman suit looks great, Wonder Woman looks great in this movie, and all the other characters really do fit their personas on the costume level design. And with most other Zack Snyder films, I will admit that this film does look great. It's filmed beautifully, it looks great, there are very dark colors and there are some brighter colors in there, but then again, Zack Snyder doesn't always like to use brighter colors. Like, he likes to make his movies dark and brooding, which is what this movie tries to go for. And those are pretty much the only positives about this film. Now let's get into the negatives, pretty much everything else. Let's start with Henry Cavill as Superman. Henry Cavill is fine in this role. He's not great, and he doesn't bring anything new to the table that he didn't bring in Man of Steel. But at the same time, he's nowhere near as good as Christopher Reeves in the old Superman movies, but that's not the main problem I have with Superman. The main problem I have with Superman is the writing and the character of the character. Superman is not a likable character in this movie at all, in my opinion. He definitely does think that he is above the law, and what he's doing doesn't matter if he destroys everything in the process or kills a few people. As long as he saves like one or two people, he should be okay, which is annoying because it just makes it seem like he's ignorant, which he pretty much is. Now let's move on to the third superhero in this movie, Wonder Woman. Now Gal Gadot does a fine job as Wonder Woman. It's not great, I don't understand why everybody's saying it's great, but she does a fine job. Wonder Woman is a fine character. The problem I have with her is just that she's not utilized enough. She doesn't really make sense in parts, like I'm wondering how did she get to this point, but I feel like they'll cover that in the Wonder Woman movie, so hopefully we'll get that, and hopefully that won't be as bad as this movie. Now let's move on to the worst character in this entire movie, which is Lex Luthor. Now Jesse Eisenberg is a fine actor. He has done some great films from Zombieland to The Social Network, and he's given really good performances throughout his career. However, Jesse Eisenberg is nowhere near being Lex Luthor in this film. When I think of Lex Luthor, I think of a charming, evil guy who's very, very smart, but also really wants to just kind of rule the world, and that's not what I felt with Jesse Eisenberg. He seemed kind of weird, he seemed kind of insane, and that's not really what I think of. He pretty much was just playing insane, smart Jesse Eisenberg, and that's not Lex Luthor. Now for the character itself, he's not intimidating or scary at all. Really, he's just kind of weird, insane, and kind of annoying at times. Really, the problem is that his writing's not good, and Jesse Eisenberg just isn't right for the part. What I think would have been better is if they put Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad and Malcolm in the Middle fame in, because he can actually be intimidating. He's actually bald like Lex Luthor is, and actually around the same age, if just a little bit older than Lex Luthor should be. And now let's move on to the storyline of this film, which is muddled, boring, shoot in. Everything about the storyline is just so bad. The first half of this movie isn't Batman vs. Superman. It is like Superman in court hearings, pretty much. It's just about, oh, should we trust Superman? And look, Superman's doing all these cool things, except logic is just thrown all out the window during it. Him and Amy Adams having a relationship, and it's just so copy-paste. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor's being insane and just being kind of dumb and just not having logic in the movie, and so that's fun to watch as well. And the only saving grace of that part of the movie is the storyline of Batman or Bruce Wayne. You actually have deeper meanings in there. You have reasons behind what he wants to do, even if they're a little muddled at times. And the second half of this movie is pretty much just an action-packed mess of just terribleness between the superheroes Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Doomsday and pretty much every other member in the Justice League. Pretty much all logic is thrown out the window at this point. Now, while there was some logic in the first half, everything is just thrown out, and if you suspend your logic, then maybe you'll like this part more than I did. But really, like, everything was just so muddled down and so disappointing in this section. It pretty much ruined a lot of the movie for me. And when I say shoehorned, like I said earlier, I mean that every single Justice League character that's really important is shoehorned within a 2-minute scene in order to set up the dawn of justice, which is pretty much the dumbest way to set up this entire thing. If you'd remove that from the movie, it would have been way less shoehorned. The action scenes in this movie are also super underwhelming. The only one that is really cool is the 10-minute scene where Batman and Superman fight each other. That's literally it. 10 minutes of the 2.5-hour-long runtime of this movie is them fighting. And while Batman's part is really cool because you get to see him beating up Superman, which is something we've never seen before, Superman beating him up isn't even that great. It's just how he fights people. It's just everything we saw in Man of Steel, except on a smaller scale between these two characters. Now, before this movie started, Zack Snyder came on the screen and asked us not to share any spoilers on social media or anything, so that way people could see the movie for themselves without any spoilers. Now, if you already saw the trailer, you already saw most of the spoilers in this movie. Every single plot point that is, like, surprising in the movie is in the trailer, except for one, which is later backed out in the very, very last second of the movie, pretty much. And it made me so angry watching it. Literally, I stood up and stormed out of the theater before anyone else got out. Literally, like, I didn't wait to see if there was an after-credit scene, which I heard there's not, thank God. Everything about this movie was just super disappointing on a plotline and character level. Now, some may be wondering why I actually hate this movie. All of the things I've said so far are pretty much everything that would make a mediocre movie. Now, that's not the reason why I hate this movie. The reason why I hate this movie is on a comic book standing level. When I saw Man of Steel, I was disappointed by it, not because it didn't follow anything from the comics, but because it was super, super long, and it was drawn out so long that I got bored while watching it. And when I see another Marvel movie such as Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America the Winter Soldier, or something like Age of Ultron, they try and at least mimic the characters from those movies onto the screen with the same morale level as they do. Now, Batman's the best part of this movie, but he has the worst butchering out of all of them. When I see Batman literally picking up guns and shooting people and killing them, something is completely wrong with your Batman movie. Batman is not a killer. Batman has a morale system, and if you want to see a great look at that, go watch The Dark Knight. It's completely structured perfectly in there, and you can see how the Joker messes with him, and see how really, when he says they are near the same person, they are kind of near the same person. But in this movie, he pretty much just throws his moral code out the window, and literally just starts shooting up people because they're just mobsters. They're not even like huge villains. They're mobsters in the movie holding somebody hostage. It literally just destroys the character entirely. And like I said earlier, Lex Luthor should be super intimidating and be an awesome bad guy, but he's not. He's super unintimidating. He's just strange and weird. Someone that's super lanky that you feel like would get taken down in a fight in like 3 seconds, and pretty much is just awful. And even though Superman follows the same character from Man of Steel, even some of his decisions throughout the movie are questionable. The idea that he pretty much just thinks that he's above the law, like it says in the movie, and pretty much just does whatever he wants just as long as it saves a few people, is something that I feel like shouldn't be correct. So overall, this movie is awful. Not only is it super mediocre on a movie level, but it's also a horrible superhero movie. While Ben Affleck at least brings some interesting moments to the movie and is actually one of the best Batmans we've had on screen, everything else here lacks. The fighting scenes lack, the storyline lacks, Superman lacks, Wonder Woman lacks, Lex Luthor super lacks, everything is just super mediocre, not only on a movie scale, but like I just said, it is one of the worst adaptations of a comic book franchise that I've ever seen. If you can suspend all logic for 2.5 hours of this movie and pretty much just sit there and ogle at Batman and Superman on the same screen for the first time ever, then maybe you will enjoy this movie. I know plenty of people that I go to school with that are probably going to enjoy this movie, but as somebody who enjoys watching good movies and enjoys watching movies based on superheroes, this movie is super lackluster. On a movie scale, this movie gets a 2-star rating, but on a superhero adaptation comic book movie scale, it gets a 0.5 star rating. So guys, since he was the only good part of this movie, let's talk Batman. Who is your favorite Bruce Wayne and who is your favorite Batman? Are they the same person or are they different like mine are? And what is your favorite Batman movie other than The Dark Knight? Let me know what you think below, and let me know what you thought of Batman vs. Superman when it comes out this Friday. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.